Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or as we like to say here at Shady Acres Woodshop, howdy. Today we have a piece of black cherry with plum knot virus. This comes to us from viewer Duane and his wife of nearly 64 years in Pennsylvania. Duane told me he wished the people that thought those two young 17-year-old kids would never make it could be around to see him now. I thought that was pretty cool. This piece seems to be more bark than wood. I don't know. We'll have to see. If you look around the edge, it doesn't look all that thick, but looking at the piece in general, it looks like it's all bark, doesn't it? Now, Duane sent me a piece that he had turned out of this same wood, a little change dish. All finished up, got bark on two sides, square end, nice shape, beautiful. And so I guess this is what we can expect out of this black cherry that he sent to me. Now this piece is about 7 inches in diameter, depending on where you measure. It's about 2.5 inches high at the tallest point. I'm going to, I just don't know. Looking in there, it's just bark. So I was going to cut a clearance hole here for my chuck jaws to set against, and then drill a hole for my woodworm screw to fit into. But I'm kind of thinking it's going to go way in there. I mean, when you look in that hole there, that's just all bark, isn't it? We'll just have to see. But I will do that. I'll take this over to the drill press. I'll cut my clearance hole. I'll drill a hole for the woodworm screw. I'll get it over here to the lathe and we'll get to turning. A couple of lessons here. First of all, when you're drilling a clearance hole and your clamp slips, don't reach out and grab the spinning piece. Don't do it. It hurts. That's the first lesson. Second lesson is inspect your piece of wood to make sure you actually have some wood and not just bark inclusion. And maybe you can see there, I have a partial hole, but I don't have enough of a hole for my woodworm screw. So I've switched to this center that I hardly ever use. Came with the chuck, I think. I can't get all 4 prongs into the wood. I can get 3 of them if I'm careful. And I'm not sure that you'll be able to see this. I guess you can't. And then bring up my tailstock. Now those that watch me on a regular basis know that I prefer a woodworm screw. And the reason I do is because it just frees up everything. You know, I can just get in here and make a tenon, or I can make a recess if I want to, whatever it is I want to do without the aid of the tailstock. And that's not the case when you're putting it between centers. You just can't do that. And the fact that there's a bark inclusion here right near my center where I need it to be doesn't help much. What I'm trying to do is make sure this bottom is as flat to the tool rest as I can get. So I'm going to apply a lot of pressure here to drive those 4 spurs on that drive center so they can hold and drive this piece. And I think we're going to go with that. So the first thing I'll do is flatten off this bottom, and then I'll be sure to round it up on the edges. And we're going to have to make a tenon. I really wanted to make a recess. I like to use a recess on a thinner piece like this, but I just can't do it with this in the way. If someone knows how to do that with the tailstock in place, I'd love to know all about it. And someone might suggest that I should put a glue block on here so as not to waste wood. The problem with that is this is not flat. And it's not smooth, and it's not going to hold glue, and that's why I very seldom, like almost never, use a glue block. This is what I'm dealing with. I'm not dealing with a nice flat smooth surface that I can glue something to. And by the time I get this flat and smooth so that I could put a glue block on there, I would have a tenon. So that's what I'm going to do, is make a tenon. Okay, 5/8 inch bowl gouge all sharpened up. Mask and face shield on, 1000 RPM. And now we can mark out for our tenon, and you can see it's not going to be a full tenon because of that bark inclusion right there. I'm not sure what we're going to do with this outside edge in this corner, so I'll stop there even though I haven't quite turned it all down yet. And I'll move over and start working on this corner. And Duane mentioned to me that when he turns this, he wears a glove because this is so sharp, and I noticed already it's biting me. The little chips coming off of there. This is a very, very hard wood, so I'm putting a glove on. Duane also mentioned to me that this bark comes off sometimes, although it looks quite tight, but he says sometimes it'll just peel off. So I'm going to approach from the top side down in an effort to keep that bark in place. If I come up, I'll be lifting it right off of the wood, and that's no good. I'm happy with that. I need to go back to the bottom here and fix up my tenon and make a little bit different base for it to set on. Now I need to raise up my tool rest a little bit. And I'm going to use this diamond point tool to square up the sides of the tenon. And that's good. I need to go back over here to this side because I changed it a little bit. I gotta fix that. Just a little shear scrape. Time for sanding. I'm going to be sanding with my 2-inch sanding disc starting at 80 grit, and I'll work up through 400 grit. The lathe will be spinning in reverse at 385 RPM. And then I'll spin it forward as well. And then I'll peel off the sanding disc and I'll just hold it in this area because I can't get in here because of the tailstock being in the way. And I'll just sand by hand through each grit as well in that area. And I'll bring you back here in a little bit when it's time to put some, I think we're going to sanding sealer and shellac probably on this piece. See you in a bit. Let's get some sanding sealer on here. Boy, this is some nice wood, I'll tell you. It's so smooth and beautiful. Beautiful grain. And it's going to be so nice with that beautiful bark on there. And I thought I might have trouble sanding this with all the bark inclusions and the odd natural edge. But I didn't. Sanded up real nice. So now I've put some of the sanding sealer in this little can, and I've got this little acid brush, and I'm just gonna get some on the brush and brush it into all of these bark inclusions. I sure wish that tailstock wasn't there. I just don't like it. It's just in my way. I am so fortunate. I've said this before, so it's not news. I'm so fortunate to have such generous viewers to share their wood with me. Black cherry, there's no black cherry around here that I know of. I just wouldn't have these opportunities. And I've had so many of them. I'm so grateful. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And I'm sure my viewers must appreciate it as well. Because not everybody has black cherry. Not everybody has these wonderful hardwoods that we get to see turned into something. So we're all lucky. So this is the first of 2 coats of sanding sealer that I'll put on. Actually, I'm kind of putting on the second one right now, but I'll do another. And then 2 coats of shellac. And I'll bring you back when it's time to start working on the inside, and I'm really looking forward to that. See you in a bit. I get a lot of questions about my finishing technique. And I've shown all of it at one time or another in different videos, but I've never shown the whole process in one video. And I don't show all of it very often at all. What I do show is the sanding. I show you the first coat of sanding sealer when I'm using sanding sealer. I don't think I ever show you the shellac coat. And the reason for that is because the shellac coat goes on exactly the same as the sanding sealer. No difference whatsoever. I put it on with a rag. I wipe it on here. There's no difference at all. Zero. Nothing. Nada. If I need to use a brush, I use a brush for shellac the same way I use it for the sanding sealer. It's exactly the same, and that's why I never show the shellac finish. And another thing that I seldom show is the buffing. I have shown it. I've explained the differences between the 2 pads that I use, but only sporadically do I show that. And the reason I don't is because I feel like I have the same viewers over and over. I know that's not true. I know that I do get new viewers, and I'm appreciative of that. But I just don't want to bore everybody with the same thing every time, and so I don't show it every time. But I'll show it this time. Hope that makes sense. These are Scotch Brite pads. They're similar to a green one that everybody has seen before, except these are finer. This is comparable, I can't remember. It's either double-aught steel wool or 3/0 steel wool. I can't remember. The gray is comparable to one of those 2. And I use that between every coat, whether it's sanding sealer or shellac. I use it between every coat before I apply the next coat. And then I vacuum it, and then I blow it off with 150 pounds of compressed air and proceed. So I use this. I'll show you how that works. I usually fold it up, and these come in different sizes. This is, I don't know, looks like 6 by 10, and this is 4 by 12. This started out at a 1/2 inch thick. I've been using it for months, and I have, I think, a dozen of them, so probably a lifetime supply. Started out at a 1/2 inch, and now it looks like it's down to maybe 3/8 of an inch. This started out at a 1/4 inch thick, and it's down to, I don't know, 3/16. Anyway, so I fold it up, especially on something like this where it's odd shaped, and if I just use it single like this, it's going to hurt when it comes around and hits my finger, and catches these little bits and pieces that are on these natural edge things that I turn. So I fold it up, get some good thickness going. In this case, I'll do 1/3. I like to have this folded edge hit the turning part rather than the unfolded edge, because if it hits the unfolded edge, it'll really tear it up quite often, and this makes it last a little longer this way. Then I just turn the lathe up to 700 or 800 RPM, and I just hold it against there. Move it around a little bit, try and get all of the areas. And that's really all there is to it. And you can hear that. If that was only single thickness, that would be hurting my finger that's under there. But because it's 3 thicknesses, I can hardly even feel it. It's just a vibration. So I do that. And then, like I say, vacuum it off. I won't do that right now. Blow it off. For the final, the very final, I don't do this one between every coat. I only do the gray one between every coat. And I use the gray one after the final coat as well. And then I switch to this white one, which, like I said, is comparable to 4/0 steel wool. And in this case, I'm going to fold it up in quarters, just because it's so big, and do the same thing. And this will actually make the piece shine somewhat. I mean, I don't do glossy finishes very much. They're all kind of semi-gloss when I'm doing shellac. And I don't use any of this when I do Howard Feed and Wax. I don't use these. This is just for the shellac finish. And that's generally about the only two finishes I use. Either Howard Feed and Wax or sanding sealer and shellac. Once in a while I'll do something else. And if I do, I'll make that clear. And then that just makes it so nice. So this is ready to go. 2 coats of sanding sealer, 2 coats of shellac, and it's time to turn it around and mount it on this tenon. 1100 RPM. I'm going to measure my depth. I don't think I'm anywhere close yet, but can't be too careful. Well, almost a ½ inch. I want to get it down to about 1/4. So I need to make a decision about how thick I want this edge. Thicker than I want, really, but here it's very thin. And I don't want to lose what little bark I have left here. So I might just have to suck it up and have a thick edge, which is okay. I don't really have a problem with it. Alright, that's our 1/4 inch right there in the bottom. I guess that's just the way it's going to be, this edge, because I just don't want to go thinner here. Maybe I could do a little tiny bit thinner, but not much. Don't make me sorry. Nice, pretty wood, wow. Let me put a fresh edge on my scraper and we'll scrape. Actually, the scraper feels pretty good. Let's give it a try. See how we did. Oh, that's nice. Smooth as could be. Time for sanding. I'm going to start the sanding with my Sandoflex. This is 180 grit, and that's as fine as I will go. I'm going to sand all of the bark edges. I'm going to sand these bark inclusions, and then I will switch to my 2-inch sanding disc. I'm going to start at 80 grit. I think I could safely start at about 240. This is very smooth in here. But I don't want to miss anything. I don't see any tool marks. I don't see any torn grain. It feels really nice, but I want to be sure that I get everything I can get, you know. It'll make a difference of 20 minutes in my sanding probably to start at 80, but I'm going to start at 80. And sometimes I'm asked what grits I use. I use 80, 100, 120, 150, 180, 240, 320, and 400. I will show you my sanding process as soon as I get my mask on. So that's what that looks like. I'll do more of it, of course. And then with the lathe spinning forward at about 350. It just takes time. It's not much fun. It's a lot of work. Nothing you want to watch. I'll bring you back here in a little bit when it's time to put some sanding sealer on. See you in a bit. Well, the sanding was easy peasy, as I suspected, and now it's super smooth, super nice. The bark feels good to touch. The Sandoflex doesn't change how it looks, it just changes how it feels. Boy, that is some pretty wood. And then just like on the outside, I'm got a little sanding sealer in this can. I'll just take this acid brush and brush it into all these bark inclusions and all over the bark itself. I want to be sure everything is covered. And I'll do the same thing with the shellac. I guess when I'm doing pieces like this, I'm thinking of the tree, what it was like as a tree. And I'm just bringing it back to life. I'm trying to make it look its best. It's all dressed up for a party. That might be a little grandiose, I suppose. But that's how I think of it. So I'll be doing this for a little while. It's going to take some time. And I'll bring you back here in a little bit after I've got 2 coats of sanding sealer and 2 coats of shellac. And we'll work at getting that tenon off the bottom. See you in a bit. I've got a block of wood mounted up in my chuck. I'm going to put a piece of non-slip cloth over that and then bring up the bowl and bring up the tailstock. This can be a little tricky because we've got a big crack there in the tenon. So I might not be able to remove this in its entirety, which is my preferred method, but we'll give it an honest try. And I'll bring up the tool rest. We'll spin it up and see if it seems like it's turning centered. Oh, it's pretty good. So there's about 550 RPM. I'm going to take a 3/8 inch standard grind bowl gouge and begin to removing the tenon. I just want to check for clearance, and we have clearance. So I'll just keep working it away. Boy, I wish that wasn't only half there. Now I'm going to get a little closer and a little higher with my tool rest. I don't want to get under that little nub because that'll cause it to pop out of there. Now I'm going to take a 3/8 inch swept-back bowl gouge so that I can get in there a little tighter and just keep working it away. Now I'm going to slow the speed down to about 200 RPM. Now I'm going to apply the bevel of the gouge against the bottom of the bowl. Pressure towards the headstock. Right hand on the gouge. Boy, I might not be able to do this. Well, no harm done, but I knew I wasn't going to get there, or at least I didn't think so. So now I'll just take this over to the workbench, use a chisel, cut that off, sand it up, sign it, finish it, and I'll be right back. Here it is, one black cherry live edge bowl in the books. Isn't that beautiful? Oh my gosh, that's beautiful. The grain, the bark inclusions, the bark, it's just wonderful. Isn't that nice? Beautiful bark. There's the bottom all finished up. Yeah, there's a couple of holes in it. That's okay. I didn't put them there, Mother Nature did. Make a great candy dish or just a nice showpiece, an art piece. Thank you, Duane from Pennsylvania, for sharing this with us for all to enjoy. If you like this video, thumbs up please, I'd sure appreciate it. If you're a subscriber, thank you very kindly. I truly appreciate that. If you're not a subscriber, you might consider becoming one. I put out regular videos about one a week, and I'd like to keep in touch. An easy way to subscribe is just click my picture you see there near the end of the video. Your comments are always welcome, and I read all of them. So for now, this is Phil, Shady Acres Woodshop, signing off.